Picture the most trusted full-size truck in America sitting in a dealership service bay, brand new, with 34,000 miles on the odometer, and a mechanic standing over the open hood shaking his head. Not because the owner did anything wrong, not because it was abused or neglected or modified, but because the engine, the heart of a vehicle that cost the buyer over $60,000, has destroyed itself from the inside out, and there is no replacement available to fix it. The mechanic knows something the buyer did not. He has seen this exact failure roll through his bay over and over, on trucks still wearing their factory tires, and he has quietly started telling his own family the same thing he is about to tell you. Do not buy a new truck right now. This is not a fringe opinion from one bitter wrench in one small town garage. Across the country, the people who actually repair these vehicles for a living, who see what fails and how often and how early, are sounding an alarm that the marketing department will never echo. And when the people whose entire livelihood depends on cars start telling you to step away from the newest, most expensive ones, that is a signal worth understanding. Because what is happening in the truck market in 2026 is not normal wear. It is not the occasional lemon that any manufacturer produces. It is something close to a systemic breakdown in the engines of the best-selling vehicles in the country, and the manufacturers themselves are admitting in their own official filings that they do not yet know how to fix it. Start with Toyota, because Toyota is the name that built its entire reputation on the promise that its trucks last forever. The third generation Tundra, along with the Lexus LX and GX that share its mechanicals, uses a twin turbocharged V6 engine known internally as the V35A. And that engine has become the center of one of the most troubling recall sagas in recent memory. The problem is metal debris left inside the engine during manufacturing, tiny shards that were never cleaned out before the engine was sealed and shipped. Those shards circulate through the oil and chew into the main bearings, the surfaces the crankshaft spins on. When a main bearing fails, the engine knocks, loses power, and can seize completely, sometimes at highway speed with the family inside. Here's where it stops being an ordinary recall and starts being something a mechanic loses sleep over. Toyota first recalled around 102,000 vehicles for this in 2024. Then in November 2025, it expanded the recall by another 126,000 because the failures kept coming. Then in May 2026, it expanded the campaign again, pulling in roughly another 44,000 trucks. The total now sits at nearly 270,000 vehicles tied to this single engine problem. But the number is not the part that should make you set down your pen at the dealership. The part that matters is this. Some of the engines in that latest expansion were built after Toyota had already identified the problem and added extra cleaning steps at the factory. They were supposed to be the fixed ones, and they failed anyway. Toyota has admitted in its own filings that even with the added manufacturing measures, debris can still slip through and destroy the bearings. Sit with what that means. The company, widely regarded as the global benchmark for reliability, identified a defect, engineered a correction, built engines with that correction, and those engines still grenaded themselves. Independent trackers compiling owner reports have found the median mileage at failure sitting around 34,000 miles, with documented cases of trucks being towed away after losing power on the road. And as of the most recent filings, the remedy for the largest expansion is not even ready. Owners have been formally notified that their engine may fail and told, in effect, to wait because there is no fix available yet. Imagine being handed a letter from the manufacturer that says your $60,000 truck might die without warning, and we will contact you when we figure out what to do about it. If you're getting value out of this breakdown, take a second to hit the like button, because this is exactly the kind of information the dealerships and the AD agencies would prefer stayed quiet, and it helps it reach the people about to sign for a truck they will regret. Now let us turn to General Motors, Because if you think this is a Toyota only problem, the domestic side of the aisle is arguably worse. General Motors built a 6.2-liter V8 known as the L87, and it sits in the most popular trucks and SUVs the company sells: the Chevrolet Silverado, the Tahoe, the Suburban, the GMC Sierra, the Yukon, and the Cadillac Escalade. General Motors recalled roughly 721,000 of them, built between 2021 and 2024, under a campaign tied to defective connecting rods and crankshaft bearings, components that, when they fail, cause the engine to seize or lose all power without warning. The official record includes reports of stalling at speed, and the failures have been linked to crashes and fires. That alone would be a serious recall. But again, it is not the headline number that should worry a buyer. It is what General Motors offered as the fix. For the trucks that passed a dealer inspection and were not torn down for a full engine replacement, the remedy was, remarkably, thicker oil. General Motors instructed dealers to drain the factory-specified 0W20 oil and replace it with a heavier 0W40. The logic being that a thicker oil film might protect the marginal bearings under stress. Think about the message that sends. The proposed solution to a catastrophic manufacturing defect in a 700,000 vehicle fleet was to pour in heavier oil and hope. And for the trucks that did need new engines, owners have learned that the replacements are not necessarily brand new units, but remanufactured ones, which has done little to restore confidence. The story did not end there, and this is a detail that pushes it from troubling to damning. After the recall fix was rolled out, the failures kept happening. Engines that had passed inspection, gotten the thicker oil, and been sent back on the road were still seizing. Owners have described the same nightmare on the highway: a sudden loss of power at 65 or 70 miles per hour with their families in the vehicle. The situation became serious enough that federal regulators at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration opened a formal investigation to determine whether GM's recall fix actually works at all. They widened their scope to probe hundreds of thousands of additional vehicles, including model years, reaching back to 2019 that were outside the original recall. On top of that, the lawsuits have consolidated into a class action. The complaint argues that the recall created widespread confusion and that the fix may not prevent failure. When the government has to investigate whether your repair is even a repair, the manufacturer is no longer in control of the problem. So step back and look at the pattern across both companies, because the pattern is the real lesson. These are not obscure brands or budget models. This is the best-selling truck engine from America's most trusted import brand and the best-selling V8 from America's largest domestic automaker. Between them, they account for roughly 1 million vehicles tied to engine failures that the manufacturers have struggled publicly and on the record to resolve. In one case, the corrected engines failed anyway. In the other, the fix is under federal investigation for not working. This is what mechanics see every week, and it is why so many of them have quietly concluded that the smart move in 2026 is to let someone else be the test subject for these engines. And that points directly at why complexity is the thread running through all of it. Both of these failures trace back to engines pushed to deliver more power and better fuel economy through tighter tolerances and more aggressive engineering, which leaves less margin for the small imperfections that every manufacturing process produces success. A simpler, lower stressed, well-proven engine has slack built into it, room to tolerate a little debris, a little wear, a little heat. These modern high-output engines do not. They are engineered so close to the edge that a few shards of metal or a bearing a fraction out of spec is the difference between a truck that runs for 300,000 miles and one that dies at 34,000 miles. The pursuit of 1 more mile per gallon and 1 more bragging rights horsepower number has quietly traded away the durability that made trucks worth buying in the first place. So what does a smart buyer actually do with all this? You do not have to swear off trucks. You have to swear off being the manufacturer's unpaid test driver. The practical move is to let the newest, most complex engines prove themselves on someone else's dime and to buy the proven generation instead. Look at the truck that came before the troubled one. The model years with the older, simpler, well documented engine that has already racked up hundreds of thousands of miles in the real world without a recall saga attached to it. For a lot of buyers, that means a clean, well maintained used truck from a few years back is not the compromise. It is the safer, smarter purchase than the brand new one sitting on the lot with an unresolved engine defect and a recall letter waiting in its future. Before you buy any used truck, run the VIN through the free NHTSA recall lookup, confirm whether it is one of the affected engines, and if it is, confirm exactly what was done about it and whether a remedy was even available yet. The buyer who checks the VIN and chooses the proven engine sidesteps the entire mess that the dealership will never warn them about. The mechanics already made their choice. They see which trucks come back on the hook, which engines they are tired of pulling, and which ones they would put their own family inside. When the people who repair these vehicles for a living are telling you to wait, to buy proven, and to let the new stuff sort itself out first, that is not pessimism. That is the most honest advice in the entire industry, offered for free by the only people with nothing to sell you. Thank you for watching. If this saved you from a $60,000 mistake, share it with someone shopping for a truck right now. Drop a comment with the make and model you are considering, and I will tell you what I would check. If you have not subscribed yet, subscribe now, because there is a lot more the dealerships would rather you never hear. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one.